In many Christian traditions, this last Sunday in the church's liturgical year is referred to as Christ the King Sunday, or the Reign of Christ. It is sort of the New Year's Eve of the church calendar before we kick off the new church year next Sunday with Advent in the beginning later on of the Christmas season. It seems surreal to me. I don't know how you're experiencing it, but I cannot believe that we are on the edge of Advent. That next week is Thanksgiving Day. It seems like a blink and also like an eternity since we had normal Thanksgiving last year, whatever that may have looked like for you. I don't know whether last year was normal Thanksgiving for you, but I do think it's safe to assume that whatever that was like, that this year will be very, very different. What do we celebrate this year is a really important question. One of the things I celebrate this year that helps keep me grounded is that these precise markers in time in the liturgical calendar helps me to orient, maybe helps you too, to orient our spirits, to remind us that life is a cycle and that we move in through Advent into the season of darkness, the winter, and we move through that into the recreation, the rebirth of life and light as the new season unfolds. But before we get to that beginning, we are here in this Sunday, thinking about what it means to be ending, thinking about what it means to read this scripture and to honor a Sunday, a day in which we are supposed to be singing, we gather together to ask the Lord's blessing, but we can't. Come, ye thankful people, come. But we won't be going anywhere, probably. What does it look like to give thanks with grateful hearts in this time of pain and loss and anxiety that is abounding? This song that we have sung so many times in the past is a wonderful, simple, contemporary Christian song, and it's been playing in my mind as I've been writing this sermon. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. It seems really simple, even simplistic, straightforward. Give thanks with a grateful heart. But what does that even mean, to have a grateful heart? Gratitude. What are you grateful for this Thanksgiving? How hard is it for you to get to Thanksgiving this different COVID year? Has the way to gratitude for you been clearer in the past, in years before? So oddly, this year I've been pondering prepositions and thinking about how much I love using them because their purpose in grammar is to connect persons, places, things. How well suited prepositions are to Thanksgiving. When you are able to, who will you celebrate with? Who do you say thank you to? What are you learning to give thanks for, through, because, in spite of, against? Yeah, I know. We're not supposed to end our sentences with prepositions, but what if they aren't ending? What if these acts, attitudes, sentences of gratitude in the time of COVID, in the time of injustice and upheaval and uncertainty, what if we are striving to learn how to connect pain and blessing, sorrow and joy, life and death and life recreated, to live thanks anew in us every day, no matter what, in spite of, in the midst of, or afterward, keeping hope alive because this year it will not be easy to get to living thanks in the day of cloud and shadows. And you and I may wonder how to say thank you. We may be able to remember, and I think it's important for us to remember what helped, what sustained us in seasons before, when the long nights obscured the light of healing. Right now, one of my spiritual disciplines, and I commend it to you in case it is helpful for you, is I am working on deep breathing. I am working on relaxing my heart and my spirit and concentrating on the blessings and reducing my resistance to what is that I cannot change, in the faith that my acceptance will allow me to center in spirit and to be present to what is and to be present to what I can change. I am learning to pray again, as odd as it may sound, Alanis Morissette's provocative song, Thank You, that says strangely, maybe it's strange, I think it may be a prayer for our time. Thank you, terror. Thank you, disillusionment. Thank you, frailty. Thank you, consequence. Thank you, silence. Yes, thank you. I could never have learned to without you. And then I'm learning again to enumerate the recognizable blessings too. Thank you, running water. Thank you, clean clothes. Thank you, insight. Thank you, digestion. Thank you, grace offered. Thank you, messes to clean up and ways to be useful. Thank you, forgiveness. Thank you, recovery. And thank you, close calls. And thank you, holy moments at sunset. And thank you, animals and fishes and water and plants and breathing and death. Because death sometimes heals. And thank you, birds and music, and thank you, others, smiles and generosity. Thank you, today. Thank you, work. Thank you, forgiveness. Thank you, old age. Thank you, time passing. Thank you, children. Thank you for the chance for me or you or God to try it again. Thank you. This Ezekiel reading says that God, the Good Shepherd, leads the scattered flock through the mountains and the ravines, and that we're not alone even now in this time that the reading calls the day of clouds and shadow. The assurance of this scripture is that we do and may trust the Holy One, who guides the shadows of darkest night, who finds the way through when there is no way, who discerns what is right and true for those most vulnerable. And in the words of John Wesley, best of all, God is with us. This call to hope and to gratitude, even in the day of cloud and shadows, is the story, of course, that we will continue to see unfolding in the messages of Advent and Christmas. The one who becomes God with us is the incarnated one whose life and work are marked by compassion and justice for the most vulnerable and not for the rich and selfish and powerful. The 25th chapter of Matthew, which is our second reading for today, moves that assurance of the comforting presence of God, the shepherd, to the next right thing for us beyond gratitude, or as an outpouring of our gratitude, and that is the expectation from God that ourselves as God's flock will then be called to right living, called to love and to shelter one another as we have been guided through the longest nights of the soul ourselves. This passage is about ultimate questions too for the time of cloud and shadow. Questions like, in this time filled with cloud and shadow, sunshine and blessing, how are we choosing to live? When we see the hungry, do we feed them? The cold and shivering, do we offer clothes? The sick and imprisoned, do we care? What is the ethos of our family, our community, our church, our nation? What does it mean to be thankful in the day of cloud and shadows? How congruent are our soul values with our behavior and our public policy? Do we recognize the identity of divinity within the hungry, sick, poor, imprisoned, marginalized ones among us? If we have done it for the least of these, we have done it for God, says the story. And if we have neglected it, we have neglected Spirit incarnated among us. It's serious. These questions are serious. The scriptures in general and Jesus in particular are certainly united in the clarion call for support and caring and justice and right living via public and private means for those vulnerable and on the margins of society, for all of us, for Earth herself. We are called to love as God has loved and cared for us. And if our life values are God values, then those who are most vulnerable will be lifted up and brought from the edges to the center of the communal life. That is the measure of our devotion. Just 2 months before he was assassinated, Martin Luther King Jr. was preaching at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta and spoke of how he would like to be remembered. He said, and I quote, "If Christ is king, then my Nobel Prize is less important than my trying